Hey guys, it's Jacob with MyMomentumMedia, and I'm bringing you a nice little interview from the creator, the writer, the brains behind Spirit Science. Spirit Science. He has a website now. Anyways, his name is Jordan Duchnycz, which I even said that wrong, and I know there's people asking me, how do you pronounce his last name? Jordan, how do you pronounce it?
It's Duchnycz, but you can say it however you want.
And however you want is probably the way I'm going to say it, because I can't pronounce it, even after asking him like 3 times how do you say it. Anyways, let me get into the core and the bread and butter of what we're going to be talking about here, and I hope you guys enjoy everything we're getting into. Jordan, what are your thoughts behind like Comet Elenin and what's going on right now in the world?
Well, Elenin just on its own was like probably one of the most interesting, discussion things of the year that most people didn't really pay attention to, I think. I mean, it started kind of, sometime last year, some Russian astronomer found this comet that was coming into the solar system. And it was like going to pass between the Earth and the Sun, which is like the closest the comet's ever passed between, to Earth, like in that sense. And there was a lot of speculation about it, of course. But then the real interesting stuff happened when Elenin was aligned with like 4 different planets or something during the Japan earthquake, the tsunami in Japan, the whole mess in Japan. So everyone was starting to say that Elenin was causing these earthquakes. So everyone was looking at all these different alignments, and some of them were like, whatever alignments, and some of them were like, big ones. And on a few of them, there actually were earthquakes, which was kind of interesting. And then, of course, the one of the biggest ones was actually just like a week or 2 ago, and it was the September 27th, I think, and came and passed. No big earthquake, so it wasn't a cataclysm. So people just kind of forgot about it. But what was really, really just mind-boggling was the stuff that was happening all around that time. At the end of August, there was this kind of event that people noticed that Elenin had seemed to kind of change course as it was flying through the sky, and then after that, everyone started to say that it was just breaking up. Like it was, the light got dimmer, the light, whatever. Richard Hoagland did some research on it, and he actually saw that it actually kind of looked like, from certain angles, it looked like a tetrahedral ship with a big light in the middle. So he was starting to say that it was actually an alien ship that was coming toward us, and maybe that the breaking apart were actually just fragments of it that was maybe like a shield that was breaking off or something like that. So the time came when it came into alignment, and some really cool stuff started to happen. So the first was that all of the world leaders started to take breaks. Basically, the president was going on this little trip. He was going to Denver, actually, and then we'll get to that in a second. The Russian president took a recess. The entire United Nations went off. World leaders all around the world, Congress, NASA, all these different groups too, just started to basically, we're like, after, on September 23rd, we're not, it's like a 2-week, 3-week break. So it's like, okay, well, why is this happening all synced up? The second thing was interesting was that, with the president was going to Denver, NASA had a bunch of members that were going to Denver as well, and there was huge military stuff going down in Denver. Now, for those who don't know, Denver is actually kind of a home base for a giant underground bunker. And it's drawn like a lot of conspiracy theory, and conspiracy theorists have like looked at this and been like, what the hell is this for? Because literally, if you go to, as Denver was constructed, it was constructed in a very specific way with these giant, it's a giant underground bunker ultimately. And then there's all over the Denver airport too, there's these conspiracy paintings of like end of the world stuff, So the president was going to Denver on the date that Elenin was supposed to be aligned. The military was basically on red alert in Denver for the weekend, and they said that there was going to be lots of explosions, lots of loud noises, and it was just a terrorist drill, not to worry about it, and it'll just pass, The crazy thing though was that, or on top of that, there were these NASA came out with stuff about this satellite that was coming down, that was gonna, it was this rogue satellite that was just happened to be crashing to the Earth. They don't know when, they don't know where, sometime in the next, few days of when all of this was taking place. So my thoughts on that were that this satellite, which, I mean, if NASA could organize, the whole Apollo 13 slingshot around the moon and then land precisely in the ocean, and just could track all of that like perfectly, and that was like in the 70s or the 80s, they could track a satellite falling to the Earth. It just doesn't make sense as to how they would not know when and where the satellite was going to land, but they were clueless according to them. Yeah, they were like, we don't know when the satellite's going to hit, probably Friday, maybe Saturday. We don't know where it's going to hit, and you know, be on the lookout. So that night, I remember seeing online, there was at least 5 or 6 videos that popped up all over the world of crazy objects coming from the sky. There were, over Canada, there was like this giant, there was like 8 or 9, like, they looked like fireballs, but like comets or something, that were like coming down to the Earth and flying across the sky. Italy has some crazy footage too. I think China did. Australia had some too, I think. So it was like, it was just all over the world, these things that were coming down. It didn't make any sense at all. I was like, what the hell is going on? This is crazy. And then, of course, you know, NASA just said, oh, it probably landed in the ocean. We don't know. The next day, of course, they were just like, it probably landed, you know, nothing to worry about. No one's hit by anything, and we're fine. Of course, you know, with the fireball, someone's house blew up, but still. I mean, ultimately, the day it came and went, and it seemed like nothing really huge happened in the world, which was the really crazy part, because it's like, what really happened that day? You know, there's so many little factors. It's a day that will forever be remembered as, you know, the day something went down, but no one has any idea as to what it was. So I was going through my own personal little awakening, or becoming aware of whatever, and looking at the world in a new way, and I really felt like, when I was reading the Flower of Life book, I remember that was kind of the big book for me, because it really went in depth on sacred geometry and what it was and how it worked. And I literally spent probably 2 or 3 months with that book, just studying it and drawing the circles and trying to understand this more. And things were beginning to click left, right, and center. And you know, it just came to a point when I was like, you know, if the entire world would just, you know, sit down and read this book, you know, everything would be different. Everyone would have new understandings about everything, because this puts everything in a whole new perspective, and it's really just awesome. So I actually started writing a book at one point, and I was just writing kind of my experiences and how everything works together for me, and what sacred geometry is and how it works. And I was explaining all this stuff, and I remember I got like 70 pages into this book, and I hit a point when I was like, you know what? I've been making cartoons for about 7 years of my life now. I could just animate this and put it in a video series instead. And I mean, the book that I compiled, it was going to be called We Are God, I think. And it was, that was kind of proof for me that I understood what I was talking about for the most part. I mean, of course, there's always more to learn, but I mean, I felt like I could explain the stuff that I wanted to explain in a relatively easy way. I mean, it was just all of my thoughts. I was just pouring everything, all of my thoughts and my passions and everything into this video series. And I don't know, one after the other, I started making it. The next thing I knew, I had finished a whole season and was traveling around the world. So, I mean, it's really just expanded and really, you know, flown since its humble beginnings. But I guess it's an interesting story nonetheless.
What's your goal in the near future with Spirit Science? Like, where are you headed? What's your direction?
Well, you know, I have a lot of actually really small projects going at the moment, which is, you know, it's really fun, because I think a lot of people, they're not really into the Spirit Quest, which is my video blogs and my kind of, you know, traveling around the world or wherever, you know, video series. Because people are like, you know, bring on more Spirit Science, bring on more Spirit Science. But what's cool is that as I'm traveling, I'm actually working on an array of new videos, actually. So one is The Curious Consciousness, which is a video series me and Joe Dolezal made together. So that'll be coming up really soon. The second is actually like a patch news thing, because I wanted to start to, you know, I wanted to kind of show the news in a fun, but from a spiritual perspective kind of thing. So we actually have Patch News, which is a 3D animated patch man who's going to be going over all of the latest, what's going on in the world kind of stuff. Maybe covering like Elenin and Occupy Wall Street, of course. That'll be a big deal, I think. And then there's also, I think, the biggest project, though. I mean, there's even more small projects too, but the biggest project that we're kind of locking into right now is the Spirit Science movie, which is Lesson 13. Because if you, I mean, of course, if you followed the series, you know, you learned that there's 13 notes in an octave, and then the 13th note is the first in the next one. So the 13th is kind of a transitional number. So season 1 of Spirit Science is like 1 to 12, and that 13 is going to be a movie that will ultimately go over a few very important pieces in the puzzle, I guess you could say, or at least some very important pieces that I thought are merit great discussion. And so we're gonna go over that, so Spirit Science 13 will be like this feature-length movie, and after that we're gonna move into season 2. And season 2, of course, will also be another project that's up and coming. We've written a few scripts for it, but we're pretty much holding off on that until the movie comes out. But then what I'm hoping for is that's going to be like the movie will be, like it'll come out on like a Monday, and then it'll be like season 2 will just every Monday since. So I think that'll be really cool.